It's nice that the messaging part is developing well. But we also have this auth part, and we haven't really worked on that. Right now, our whole app component only represents the messages part. I want to change this. I now also want to start working on the authentication part. And more than that, I also want to implement routing, which means I want to be able to switch between my messages part and my authentication part. So in one part, I want to be able to still create and see my messages, but in the other part, I want to be able to sign up or sign in a user. Well, for that, I need routing. I want to be able to load different pages depending on different links on which I clicked. To do so, I will add yet another component to my messages feature file here, or the folder. The messages component.ts. So I already do have a message component which represents a single message. This now should represent my whole messages feature, this messages part here. So here I will export my messages component. And of course, you already guessed it, I will add my component decorator to this, which needs to be imported from @Angular core like always. Here I'll pass my object and we'll set up the selector. Let's name it app messages. I also want to set up the template, and you could use an external file. I'm going to use an inline template again, like this with backticks. And in this template, I want to have all the code I have here in my app component HTML file. Because again, I want to have this messages component to be the responsible part for my messages feature. So with this, I created my separate app messages component. And now I could include it like this here, but I don't want to do that because I want to use routing. I still need to register it in my module here. So here it's time to now add my messages component, also add the import, so that we're able to use it in routing later on. Before adding routing, let me also add a component to the auth file, to the auth folder. Authentication.component.ts will be the file name, and in here I'll also export a class named authentication component. Here I'll also assign a decorator component like this, imported from @Angular core as always, and let's give it a selector of app authentication. The template will grow later on. For now, all I will do here is I will simply output a h1 tag where I say authentication to know that we successfully got there. I also won't include this in my app component template, but again, I also need to add it to my app module to make Angular 2 aware of this component so that I can use it in routing later on. Also add the import. Now I finally also want to create a header, and I will store this in the app folder, though I could create a subfolder named shared or something like this. Here, the header component should, well, you might have expected it, hold my header. So in here, I'll also export this class, header component, add component, decorator, with the JavaScript object passed here. And this should get a selector of app header. And then again, a template. I'm going to use an inline template here too. You might outsource it if you prefer that, of course. And in there, a header with class row. And then a nav element with the classes call md8 and then call md offset2, like before, bootstrap grid classes to style it nicely. And in here, let's give this an unordered list with the class nav pills. This is this pills navigation look Bootstrap offers us. You can find it on getbootstrap.com, of course, if you want to learn more about that. Whoops. And in here, let's create two list items with anchor tags to have my links. I want to have a messenger link and let's say an authentication link. I will remove the ref element because I will replace this later on, but for now I will leave it like this. and register this header component, which now until now only has a default Bootstrap styling, to the app module. Also add the import. This allows me in my app component HTML file to include the app header like that. So if I save this and reload the application, we now see this header with the 2 pills. No pill is active right now. And well, the routing of course doesn't work. So we clearly can improve this a bit more.